Instagram lately, there's a good chance you've probably come across this all eyes on Rafah AI-generated image.
And it shows a massive tent encampment drawing attention to the displaced Palestinians.
In today's edition, Catalina, all eyes on Rafah is trending on social media.
The AI-generated image was shared nearly 50 million times on social media after the massacre of civilians.
The reality of what's happening in Rafah and throughout all of Gaza at this point is it's mind-numbing atrocity, right? Like fire, beheaded children.
Fire and horror in Rafah. An Israeli airstrike at a camp for displaced civilians, setting tents and cars aflame.
Independent weapons experts told CBS News that U.S.-made bombs were used in that attack.
Well, that's kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward. I might get cancelled for this one, you know.
Idea of purity, and you're never compromised, and you're always politically woke and all that stuff. You should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities.
Okay, guys, so today's episode will be on social media and activism online. Specifically, we'll be talking about all eyes on Rafah, referencing different online forms of activism that's happened throughout the years as social media has boomed. Is it fake? Are they all like Joseph Kony? Did I say that for algorithmic purposes? Maybe. However, we go into a deep analysis of this and trying to understand whether we can trust social media activism.
As I promise, like, and even it was.
Or should we be as skeptical of the activism as we are the perpetrators? Are we being co-opted? Who knows? But before we get into that, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. In order to grow this channel, I'm gonna need your help. I'm gonna need your engagement. So go into the comment section, give some feedback, positive, negative, episodes, ideas you wanna see, things that you found interesting, things that you just wanna randomly say. I don't mind. All engagement is good engagement. But without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Killed in October was too much. Now it's 30,000. It doesn't matter now. 100,000, it doesn't matter. 300,000, it doesn't matter. We've been lectured by the West for so long about like the values of humanity and Declaration of Human Rights, and then we just see that doesn't apply to us. So kind of like you feel that maybe our people are very cheap and they don't matter.
You're probably aware of the conflict that's going on in Israel between Israel and Palestine. It's a deep conflict that goes back somewhat 100 years between the inception of the state of Israel, Palestine being taken over, potentially being robbed by the UK. There's a lot of history behind it basically. And it goes back as far as the Ottoman Empire, the dissolvement of the Ottoman Empire, who has rights to these lands and who doesn't. However, its history is less important today as there is a conflict where young children, babies, mothers, fathers, kids, teenagers are dying for a conflict that they were born into and have no right to be dying over. Sometimes too often trivialize their deaths as political talking points, ways to score points over each other, often forgotten. By the way, if you have no idea what's going on in Israel, between Israel and Palestine, please, there's links in my description. Go check it out, pause me here and come back.
You're going into a rabbit hole right now.
Hey, yo.
Pause me here. Anyway, with the potential of Rafah being moments away, days away from being under siege and a mass slaughter taking place, there was an online campaign called All Eyes on Rafah. And as you probably can tell, All Eyes on Rafah, the image that you will see, is a AI generated image. Done for the purposes to sanitize what was going on there intentionally in order for it to spread online. However, did that sanitization potentially trivialize it? Does that image downplay what happened there? Check this TikTok out for those answers.
Visually is not actually what's happening in Rafah, right? This is a pretty sanitized image, right? This is just encampments that spell out, or an encampment in tents that spell out All Eyes on Rafah. The reality of what's happening in Rafah and throughout all of Gaza at this point is it's mind-numbing atrocity, right? Like fire, beheaded children, decimated and desecrated bodies, right? This image is not Rafah. And I do think that's important to note because the image that's being shared is so sanitized versus what's actually happening. Because what's actually happening will stay in the minds of people for the rest of time. And I do think it's important to call that out because Israel should be held accountable because this is not what Rafah looks like. What Rafah looks like is hell.
And as you can tell, what is really going on in Rafah is an atrocity. It is war crimes. It is too harsh, too disgusting to put on YouTube, to be honest. And I would probably lose any chance of monetization or growth of this channel if I posted what was actually going on there. However, there is the argument and the claim that in order for it to grow, you needed those harsh images. And this comes to the very root and cause of, does online activism really work? Although this hit about between 40 to 50 million people worldwide, and on top of that, it has done somewhat of help to create a ceasefire and an invasion of Rafah. A slaughter was prevented to some degree due to the mass spreading of what had happened there. So we can somewhat attest to it being helpful. But like some of the clips have said,
the controversy with it was that a lot of Palestinians and advocates felt that, somehow Palestinians are going viral at this very key moment, but, continue to be invisible. So, that's
absolutely
long-standing.
Yeah.
Has this done more to trivialize them in one sense, the deaths of millions of Palestinians? Has this also made the lives of Palestinians more invisible? And as I said, it comes at the very heart of what my problem is with social media activism, is that too often it's reduced to thumbs ups, likes, reposts, retweets, and lack of action, because what is going on in Palestine is a continuous issue. It's an issue that will not just stop here. Although there's been calls for a ceasefire that is going on in Rafah, the Palestinians and some Israelis as well need our constant support to keep this in the forefront of the media storm and eye.
We are told, sources have told Al Jazeera, that Hamas has submitted its response to the U.S. outlined ceasefire proposal. That's coming as Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group issued a joint statement expressing readiness to reach a deal. Now, according to sources, they have made some amendments. The amendments include a withdrawal from the entire Gaza Strip, including the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor.
Although there's been a touch of positivity from this. It can be trivialized and just become a cultural zeitgeisty moment, which often happens with social media campaigns, as they elicit strong and palpable feelings of togetherness, community, siege mentality, sometimes even mob mentality. It forces momentarily change. However, that momentum is often and regularly not followed up. A research study done into the psychology of online activism and social movement and the relationship between online and offline collective action discusses the theories of online activism and the benefits of it as well. Empirical evidence suggests that activism has a positive effect on intertwining digital and ground roots levels of mobilizations offline. However, too often they can elicit emotions and elicit terms such as slacktivism, which is this sort of lazy activism, simplifying it like the clip had shown previously to just a retweet, just a like, just a thumbs up. And this is what can happen when you reduce these massive campaigns to just online presence. And if you don't do it, you are somewhat on the wrong side of history.
I made a Google Doc of every celebrity that attended the Met Gala, and now I'm going through and writing if they've been silent or if they've been using their platform to speak up about the genocide in Gaza.
As if history is dictated by a retweet, by a repost, by a like. Often, again, like I keep saying, trivializing a very serious issue. And you can see not only the negatives that can potentially happen with this, but how it's happened in the past. You've got the Coney incident, for example.
Coney 2012 is the story of a man, Jason Russell, and his relentless quest to stop Ugandan warlord, Joseph Kony. Let's begin where the action started. On March 5th, 2012, a charity called Invisible Children published a high-production video called Coney 2012. It was an awareness campaign seeking to mobilize action to capture or kill Ugandan warlord Joseph Kony.
And the goal of the story was to make Kony famous.
30 minutes long, it really tried to pull at your heartstrings.
At the end of my life, I want to say that the world we've left behind is one that Gavin can be proud of. A place that doesn't allow Joseph Konys and child soldiers.
And little Gavin would have been proud, because it took off like no video on YouTube ever had.
We wanted 500,000 views in the whole year of 2012. We got 500,000 views in the first 3 hours.
It received 100 million views in the first 6 days, 1.4 million likes. Click that link in the description below. They clicked it so hard the website went down, and their email was so inundated that the service provider assumed it was an attack and temporarily pulled the plug. The Times named it the most viral video ever. It raised the charity over $20 million. People really went fucking bananas for this video and those Ugandan kids. 4 million hashtags. People changed their Facebook profiles, so you knew it was a big deal. A fan-made mobile game. Are you woke about Joseph Kony? Yeah, but are you woke enough to get a tattoo? People were up for pretty much anything to stop Kony, as long as it didn't involve any practical action. 1 like equals 1 saved child. But who is Joseph Kony and what's all the fuss? Well, he's the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA.
My God, you're greasy.
And he really is one of the most evil people living today. Imagine the worst crime you can think of committing, and he'll have done it thousands of times over.
Takes children, makes them kill their parents and eat their parents.
The surviving girls would be kept as sex slaves, and the boys conscripted into the LRA as child soldiers.
I know, it's kind of a bummer.
It's all part of a civil conflict that's been going on for 30 years. We'll get into the details later, but for now...
Where a somewhat deep and embedded issue was not only exaggerated, but also for the benefit of certain and that particular charity group at the time. On top of that, you have the BLM issue.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No racist, police. No racist, police. What was his name? George Floyd. What was his name? George Floyd. What was his name? George Floyd. George Floyd. George Floyd. Black lives. Black lives. Thank you.
You see, the George Floyd protest was, in a weird way, sadly, a oddly unifying moment in time of society. It was a time where people were marching together, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all in one, in the understanding of systematic and overt police brutality and racism against black people. Now, why have I put this here? It seems to be a unifying moment. Celebrities came and endorsed it. Football teams, basketball teams came out and did the kneel with Colin Kaepernick, who had once been ignored. Businesses were putting Black Lives Matter, asking how could they help? But that trivialization I mentioned earlier, that wanting to appear on the right side of history, but not actually being on the right side of history, came and reared its ugly head, because you have to ask yourself this poignant question: what actually changed?
People of color are less likely to be in good health. The life expectancy for black men is more than 4 years less than that of white men. People of color are less likely to see a doctor. They are less likely to have good health insurance or health insurance at all. During the COVID-19 pandemic,
COVID-19! COVID-19!
people of color died from the virus at a higher rate than whites. Black infants are more than 2 times as likely to die as white infants. Black and Hispanic children are more than twice as likely to not have enough food to eat than white children. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. We want equal opportunity, and systemic racism is still, in the year 2024, preventing that from happening. Today, if you are a person of color, especially born in the United States, with the data we have, we can predict that it's much more likely that you will end up living a shorter life, getting a worse education and crappier job opportunities, not being able to buy a house, getting less political representation, and end up in prison.
Calls for diversity went from being shouts for inclusion to tokenism and token characters. Celebrities that were for BLM's movement that originally started with the I Can't Breathe campaign to defund the police. Those same celebrities that endorsed the Democratic candidate Joe Biden, who was for the increased funding of the police.
What's your whole take on defund the police? Maybe we should get into that, talk about that, explain that.
I think it's I don't want to say positively brilliant, because it's not positively brilliant. Because if it was positively brilliant, messaging matters, and in messaging, every word has to count. So when people hear defund the police, they think defund the police, take all the money out of the police department. I don't know why some people thought, I don't know why they was even talking about disbanding and abolishing, because that never crossed my mind. When I heard defund the police, I was like, okay, take all the money from the police officers. But when you read what defund the police means, is they want to take money out of these bloated police budgets and put them into communities that need them, which makes absolute sense. Because why does New York City have a $6 billion police budget? Take a couple of those billion and put them into the hoods in the city that need them. Put them into the schools.
And introduce them to an audience that they're not. So you probably provide them great value.
Well, the best thing for me is I'm not a political pundit. Like, I'm actually stupid when it comes to politics, so I don't know anything. I'm just like a private citizen that has a vote. So I'm talking to them from the perspective of, why would I vote for you? That's it.
Yeah.
Simple. Nothing else. I don't have any vested interest in any one party, nothing.
That must be nice for them.
You know what? Let me rephrase that. I will vote liberal this year.
Okay.
And I voted liberal the only other 2 times I voted. Well, 3 times. I voted for
three for
Obama, once for Hillary.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
The reason why BLM, at the time Black Lives Matter, were campaigning for defunding of the police is because they believed it was inherently racist and needed to be destroyed and a new built in order to be replaced. But however, rogue and misinformed, misunderstood members and endorsements aren't where BLM really fell.
New released tax filings show exactly how Black Lives Matter spent their donation money. William Lajeunesse has been digging through it all. What do you have for us, William?
Well, Stuart, here you have an $80 million foundation. Last year they had 0 board meetings and 1 board member. So that's not oversight. But the scrutiny is over use of donor money to hire friends and family. So 3 expenses stand out. BLM gave almost $1 million to Damon Turner, the father of the co-founders, Patrisse Cullors' child, to produce live events. $840,000 went to her brother, Paul, for security. Cullors also admits hiring her mother and sister to work at BLM's LA mansion.
I think it's important that people understand that while my brother is the head of security and my mom and sister did work at the property, it's not like I literally, opened up the bank accounts and was like, I'm bringing all my family and friends in. Folks had skill sets.
BLM also paid Shaloma Bowers $2.1 million for consulting. He and 2 others now serve on the board. BLM spent $1.2 million lobbying to impeach President Trump and eliminate bail. Cullors spent $73,000 on a private jet and used the LA mansion for 2 private parties, but later reimbursed BLM for both. BLM dispersed $25 million in grants to 31 groups. They banked $41 million, including $32 million in stock. Supporters blame any accounting flaws on inexperience.
You see, not only did the manipulation of the term Black Lives Matter do more to derail this movement, it was also the members, it was also the founders using public spending as a way to enhance and enrich their own pockets. And it elicits this theory from George Orwell's Animal Farm, the corruption of a revolution. Hence why I actually believe it shouldn't be online revolutions. That's my answer.
Orwell, who understood dictatorships and totalitarianism better than anyone, wrote a powerful and witty allegorical book titled Animal Farm. In Orwell brilliantly lays out how idealistic revolutions which aim to solve oppression are often a cure that is worse than the disease.
Now, some people may not be familiar with Animal Farm and what it's about and what it's not about. It can get a bit confusing because it's a cultural book. But to quickly summarize for you, it is essentially an allegory for what happened in Russia, but what happens with revolutions in general, with the animals wanting to revolt against the humans who've been mistreating them, entrusting power to the pigs in order to help them rebuild their farm and make it a more utopian idea. However, eventually the farm itself became under the dictatorship and rules of the pig, the main pig being Napoleon. At the end, they said this final, I believe it was the final quote, in fact. I believe it was the final quote, one of the last lines, that they could no longer see the difference between the pigs and the humans and the humans and the pigs. And if you're wondering if it's ironic or an allegory that the people that got greedy with the pigs, yes it is. Yes, it's all intentional. And it was very similar to the founder of the BLM movement, going from being this revolutionary to this greedy, capitalistic, anti-revolutionary figure and was much about what George Orwell's book was about and much about what she was fighting against and the whole group in general. And it's such a shame that we see this happen again. And it must be said about the BLM movement, it has done phenomenal change, not only for online campaigns and the people that got involved in them, but for black people in general. One small change, and it may seem just small to some people who experience racism on a regular, is that the discussions about race, microaggressions, in a short period of time was able to enter the forefront, and is something that we're more comfortable having. However, being the way it was co-opted, not only by far-right activists who just did not like the discussion of race, simplified the term Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter, as if that's what Black Lives Matter actually meant.
Recently stirring controversy on Fox Sports when he said he personally doesn't see racism because so many of his fans are white.
I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism.
There was a lot of backlash from people about that. Would you change it, what you said, or
No,
you
not
still
at
feel the
all.
same way? What's your thought on Black Lives Matter?
What is it? What do you mean?
The idea was that there's this movement called Black Lives Matter, thinking that the rest of America didn't seem to understand that Black Lives Matter.
It just sounds weird. I didn't know that you put a name on. It's not a name. It's not whatever. It's somebody got shot by police and for a up reason. I am a young, black, rich. If that don't let you know that America understands Black matter these days, I don't know what it is. Don't come at me with that dumb man. My life matter, especially to my.
Do you separate yourself from it?
I don't feel connected to a damn thing that ain't got nothing to do with me. If you do, you crazy as you. Connected to this flag right as I'm connected. I'm a gangbanger, man. I'm connected.
He ended our interview angrily.
Politician.
Lil Wayne is in the business of making music, not apologies.
But the corruption that came from inside helped play a part in that. However, we live in a day where we can have those discussions. Sadly, the forward movement that was supposed to happen from it wasn't as great or as big a step as we had once hoped. And I do argue that that is so often that because it happens online. If you see a company say BLM now, people just think, oh, they're for black people. And that's what happens when movements are co-opted, especially movements that just predominantly stick online. You see, it's a great starting point, like the article discussed that I mentioned earlier. But it is just a starting point. But another example of that is this.
As fashion's biggest night, the annual Met Gala has become a worldwide phenomenon, being attended by dozens of A-list celebrities, covered by hundreds of publications, and critiqued by thousands of online spectators, myself being one of them. This is the 4th year in a row that I've covered the Met Gala, so you should know the drill by now. But for those of you completely unfamiliar with this star-studded event, allow me to explain.
Flowers, twigs, fruit, flowers. We got it from a photograph. Meanwhile, there's the spectacle of extraordinary military activity all around the world, funded by you. Meanwhile, farmers are being divorced and almost dragged from their land financially or literally. Government programs to make forced acquisitions. Meanwhile, seeds are being patented. Food is being centralized. Lab meats are being endorsed by some of the world's most powerful figures. I'm talking specifically about Bill Gates. We'll cover that story elsewhere. When ludicrous, bizarre events, like remember that Willy Wonka event in Scotland that everyone said was like crap? Well, they created a version of it. That was itself a parody of an event, and then they parodied that parody. When is the ridicule, the ludicrousness, the bizarre pastiche gonna end? Oh, no, well, oh my God. I thought I was pulling up something about Willy Wonka, and it's Israel invades Rafah despite Hamas ceasefire agreement. No, but hold on a minute. Remember, Kim Kardashian's dress has got twigs on it. And mouses.
If you watched last week's episode, you probably remember me discussing the Met Gala and its almost dystopian depiction in the media. And it really was highlighted by this specific moment.
Let them eat cake. Can you take the
Hailey Bailey, who is she? She's an influencer, using the term let them eat cake that comes from Marie Antoinette. Who is Marie Antoinette? Well, she is the last Queen of Scotland.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I keep saying last Queen of Scotland. She's the last Queen of France. And what happened during that time, where this quote allegedly comes from, is it was the time building up into the French Revolution, where the French aristocrats and royalties had become so greedy, so wasteful, that allegedly when they were asked about the peasants not having enough bread, Marie Antoinette allegedly said,
"Let them eat cake."
Now, Hailey Bailey is going to the Met Gala, says the same thing.
Let them eat cake.
But there's two problems with this, and this is the problem with online campaigns. Number one,
number is coming in at number 1, because it's of course
Marie Antoinette allegedly never said that.
Such nonsense. I would never say that.
She may have just said something alluding to that. She may have never even commented on it. It was maybe just an allegory for how the rich Aristotles looked at the peasants. Bigger than that is, Hailey Bailey wasn't even at the Met Gala. She wasn't formally invited. At best, she was just pressed outside.
Everything I know is a lie!
Secondly,
at number 2, it's actually
this call for the blockades, blocking of celebrities who don't stand up against the atrocities that are happening in Israel.
Why is digital guillotine targeting big-name celebrities? Digital guillotine, or digitine, is a social movement where users block celebrities and influencers on digital platforms. The movement gained momentum after influencer Hailey Khalil posted a controversial video referencing Marie Antoinette's Let Them Eat Cake during the Met Gala, echoing Marie Antoinette's infamous words to starving peasants. The backlash was swift, with many viewing the post as insensitive amid global conflicts and economic struggles. The movement's origins trace back to TikTok user Lady from the Outside, who called for blocking celebrities who are not using their resources and positions to help those in need. The movement's advocates argue that blocking celebrities impacts their economic power, as follower counts influence brand partnerships. While some see this as a form of cancel culture, proponents believe it's a way to demand accountability and social change. Critics argue it oversimplifies complex issues and won't achieve real-world change. Despite differing opinions, the digitine reflects growing frustration with perceived elitism and the role of social media in amplifying voices. Whether this movement will lead to lasting change remains to be seen, but it highlights a significant shift in public sentiment. So,
I never ever considered influencers celebrities. And this harkens to my biggest point. The blood lost online.
Why are you stuttering? I'm not stuttering. You are stuttering.
The blood lost online. And this seeming call to cancel, deplatform, cut off celebrities at any chance people get. And I just wonder, when did this become a way of counteracting against the elites? Surely at this point, surely at this time, we're aware that celebrities are jesters, fools.
In this case, he's a fool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Fools don't know no better.
Yeah. But
They don't know what they're doing. They're merely just shiny things to distract us. They are not the people that we should be chastising and chasing down for ridicule or support. That's why I use the Joseph Kony allegory, where the director said 20 celebrities, 12 government officials to chase this down. Celebrities can do so much and only so much. We need to start holding businesses, governments, government officials, in the case of All Lives Matter, in the case of All Eyes on Rafah, government officials who have vested interest in.
Members of Congress should not own individual stocks, but not for the reason you might think. In fact, they would do themselves a favor to ban it. Unless, of course, they're trading on inside information, which makes a ban all the more urgent. Yes, congressional stock trading opens the door to abuse of sensitive information and conflicts of interest. But none of that would even be an issue if members of Congress realized one thing: picking stocks is a waste of their time and money. The issue of congressional stock trading is coming up again. With war raging in multiple parts of the world, some lawmakers are trading stocks of defense companies. Members of Congress have traded aerospace and defense stocks, including Raytheon Technologies, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman.
Weapons manufacturing companies that are supplying both, at times, Israel and potentially Palestine too. who are directly related to war profiteering. We should do more to call that out. And in the case of the Met Gala, we should do more to call out Balenciaga, who I've spoken about a number of times about their problems, whether that be marketing that elicits child sex pornography, their name, how they treat their staff. There's a number of things to call out there. Call out Anna Wintour. The Met Gala is allegedly a fundraising event as well. We never call out the fundraisers. We never call out the vested interests in the Met Gala. We just call out the people that we recognize and see. And I understand that. But in this age of analysis and discernment and trying to be the information age, surely we should be calling them out.
A Tale of Two Cities is a novel written by Charles Dickens. Originally published in weekly installments in Dickens' own literary journal, the novel is set during the violent French Revolution.
Know that Dickens is not passing judgment one way or the other. He's asking you to examine things. Now you might think, well, this all happened ages ago, so how can it apply to me? This is why we read the classics, timeless messages. Are there social reform movements today? Are there any areas where you see people maybe abusing power? Do you sympathise with the need to change things around? Now, I don't mean politically, I just mean you see this on the world stage. Now, do you sense that movements can get too much power and overreach their authority? Could it be that maybe the more volatile and dogmatic elements of a movement are rising to the top? Tale of Two Cities gets you to engage in that idea and then to be able to draw conclusions about the world around you for yourself.
A Tale of Two Cities, which is set at the time of the French Revolution, depicting two different cities that were at one point seemingly different, however actually very similar, two separate characters. And it brings out this finite point, this beautiful point, that people who often seem the most noble are often the most bloodthirsty, and people who seem the most selfish and greedy can have moments of nobility and heroism. Amazing book. Amazing book. In my opinion, you see that with these calls for cancelling and blocking celebrities, not looking at the companies, not looking at the vested interest in them, in why they were allowed to do some of the heinous things they've been able to do, why they don't feel potentially comfortable calling out the atrocities in Palestine if they even understand what's going on there in the first place, why they're at the Met Gala, why there is such a gap between us and them. We always look at the things that are in front of us and not the things that are pulling the strings behind them. And we seem, in my opinion, in those moments to be more focused on cancelling people, calling it a digitine, than actually getting to the root cause of why there's such a gap between us. It was a great idea, an amazing idea that I believe should be followed up with maybe flooding sites, crashing websites, and people have discussed this online.
I also think that there is a time and a place for something that's easily digestible, easily shareable, representative, that is not going to get suppressed or blocked for being too gory or anything like that, that can be shared across algorithms. But it's also an easy way for the masses to endorse their support for preventing the atrocities that are in Rafah, which I think that is like invaluable. So to be able to say that like over 40 million people stand in support with the Palestinians is a huge thing to say. And so I think we need to not waste time being like, don't post this when you can post, the actual images. Do both. If this is the thing that gets people started, this is not the end all be all, but this is the thing that introduces people or finally brings people on the fence into this topic, then they can start to do their research. Then you can share all the other things with them as well.
But they need follow-ups. From now, it happened, the Met Gala was about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks of time of you watching this video. And the digitine has somewhat gone to pass. It seems to be a passing fade, and that's the problem with these things. That's the problem with these online media campaigns. And that's the problem with some of the All Eyes on Rafah campaigns. Although it was an amazing start, it was just a start. This is a moment to understand that they're all interconnected. They are all things that understand that atrocities are happening around the world, and there are few companies that are profiting from them. And we should start looking at that and connecting the dots to that. Those countries, those war profiteers, those weapons manufacturers that are profiting for this, we should be holding them more accountable, as well as some celebrities as well, but them the most accountable.
And I wanted to create a post to empower people and to make people realize that everything is connected, and that I ended up finishing this post, and all I did was actually just change the front cover of the post to make it, to have the image of the All Eyes on Rafah post, because I wanted the 40 million or 50 million, whoever posted this to their stories, I wanted them to then, prompt them, as we said previously, to prompt them to learn more, to prompt them to see, how all injustice is interconnected, and for change to happen in Palestine, change must happen everywhere else. And if there's anything, as a Palestinian, I would hope that they would pick up on after sharing this image, if this was the first image they had ever shared on Palestine, or their first introduction to the genocide happening in Palestine, then the first message is this is all interconnected. And to stand for Palestine means to stand for all.
The government's accountable. The financial institutions that support these governments and these businesses that hand them loans. And if you dig a little bit deeper into the situation that is going on in Israel, you will find this.
That this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great uncle Walter.
It's an interesting question, because it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people.
Bizarre. That video is not as old as people think, and if you don't know who that is, that's one of the Rothschilds, or Rothschilds I should say. Rothschilds? I can never pronounce the name. However, you will find, and I am not here to engage in any conspiracies, but you can see, even from some of the comments, that Joe Biden has said.
Kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist.
Were I a Jew, I would be a Zionist. And my father pointed out to me, I did not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist. You need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist.
That once upon a time, calling yourself a Zionist was seemingly alright, was seemingly acceptable. And campaigns and online campaigns like All Eyes on Rafah is one, but all the campaigns regarding the issues that are going on in Palestine have done an amazing job to bring this into the forefront, allow us to have a debate about what's going on in Palestine, although it is again just the beginning, and similar to the Black Lives Matter, is a tiny step, and we need to start mobilizing offline. We can see the positives, but too often it's left just there to conversations, debates, and no real change is allowed to happen. Someone like, although he has passed, the Rothschild that was allowed to say he's a Zionist. Joe Biden is the president and was allowed to say he was a Zionist and has not been held to account, or would like to be a Zionist, sorry, and was never held to account, is disturbing and worrying. And I worry those people who are calling out celebrities for not campaigning against the issues that are going on in Rafah and Palestine at large and other atrocities that are going on may have the wrong focus, and to me are bearing their bloodlust at the people who seemingly have the most wealth but actually don't hold the wealth. We have our wrong attention when it comes to the online media campaigns. However, much of the data does show that it's a great starting point, and a lot of people who engage in these online activism and online campaigns often mobilize and go offline and protest. However, I just don't think even that is enough at this point. We are in a junction in society where change is quite drastic and it is needed. However, change is slow and it's hard. Online campaigns are simplified to likes, retweets, reposts. And that is just the beginning. That repost all eyes on Rafah was a part of the BLM movement, or a part of any online movements, whether that's Free Congo, Free Sudan, keep this in the media forefront, those kind of campaigns. I'm not against them all. At all, sorry, I should say. I am more here just trying to make sure that people do a little bit more and put their, I don't want to say money where their mouth is, but where their action where their mouth is. Try to higher the bar of accountability and earnestness into these campaigns, simplifying them to trivial media points and zeitgeists that blow away, or can be easily co-opted by an insurgent right wing or whatever. However, the fight for going forward is quite a difficult one. I did my best with this one. There is so much of where this could have gone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please put into the comments section what you thought about it. Did I get stumbled a little bit at times? Potentially. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I just want people to have a more earnest approach into this and not just simplify it to those likes and those retweets. Please, ironically, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bad timing on that one. But like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. That's also important. I've been forgetting to mention that. And I'll see you next week. Peace.
Vision? What do you know about my vision? My vision would turn your world upside down, tear us under your illusions, and send the sanctuary of your own ignorance crashing down around you. Now ask yourself, are you really ready to see that vision?